What we doing, gentlemen? We are in a discussion about the traffic stop that was involved in Midland, Texas. We got six guys on the screen. Two of us are police officers. The other four are citizens of different various towns. I'm going to start to my right with Greg Howard. Just have him introduce himself and tell us about his experience, what he brings to the table, and we'll continue to go around.
All right, thanks, Joe. My name's Greg. I've been a police officer in my hometown in Stonington, Connecticut for the last 18 years since I was 22. So my whole adult life, wife and two sons. I lived my whole life here. So what I hope to bring to the table, being a police officer for as long as I have, is, the thought process that police officers go through, sort of why they go through the process that they do at different incidents in their mind and in their training. And being grown up in the community that I did, which is, very dominantly a white community. I don't have the experience and the worldliness of, some of the other communities in our nation that have these issues. And even though we don't necessarily have those issues at that grand stage here, because they're out there in the public, they come here in that, we have people in our community that have concerns about me or when I approach them. And that's what I want to understand about today. And that's why I'm hoping to get out of this.
Appreciate that, G. Bottom below you, we got Jay Rosencroft. Jay is Stonington High School basketball coach. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, Jay.
Doing Jay Rosencroft. I've been in this community for about 12 years. I live in Stonington, Connecticut. I'm the high school basketball coach here. I have a business here. I'm the father of three. Very active in the community with sports and activities, and hoping to get a positive and constructive conversation going based on the video, but just try to get a better understanding of the other side, the police's perspective on how they patrol and how things are done. I think it will definitely open my eyes to a little more and be a little more receptive and understanding of how difficult your jobs may be, and also try to give you a little bit of my perspective. Appreciate you guys having me on.
No, I appreciate you coming on, Jay. Bottom below you, we got Adam Lennikis. Adam is a citizen of Stonington community, Stonington Wesley community. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So my name's Adam Lennikis. I'm the how my connection fits in here is so I'm the father of two kids, two black kids who we adopted 10 years ago, my daughter, and 8 years ago, my son. And what we're running into is, it's important for us to be able to not only understand both sides, but to be able to, as our kids get older, to be able to teach them. We're having to advocate for them now, but for them to be able to advocate for themselves, and they're beginning to really kind of see what that looks like. So we're really just kind of being able to try to help them navigate through everything that's going on right now. And to be able to lend my perspective to this is certainly something that I appreciate, and be able to teach them to understand both sides, as we've been saying. I also have grown up here in the Wesley Stonington area for about the last 30 years. But prior to that, I grew up in New London, Connecticut. So again, somewhat of an urban area, and I am able to have a little bit of both perspectives. So thanks for having me.
Appreciate that, Adam. We're going to continue down on the bottom right. And we got my buddy Jamal Piper. Jamal and I go back to when we were age 6 years old, growing up in Prince George's County. Tell us a bit more about yourself, Pipe.
Yeah, Jamal Piper, live in Silver Spring, Maryland, born and raised in the area. 400 years was spent in Prince George's County, and then lived in D.C. and mostly Montgomery County the last 20 plus years. My family's been on that end of town. Just a concerned citizen. This was just the current climate that we're in. I appreciate the invitation to share and dialogue with police officers, get their perspective, and can share mine as a citizen from my perspectives as well. So just glad, thankful to be here.
Appreciate you coming on, my man. And then at the bottom right below me, we got my man Christopher Joseph. We call him CJ. Grew up, went to high school outside of Baltimore. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, CJ.
Yeah, my name is CJ Finlay. I'm a personal trainer in Washington, D.C. I live in Silver Spring as well. I've lived in Prince George's County. My father was in the military, so I've kind of lived a lot of different places. He was actually military police. And so I grew up in that household, as well as when I was in New York with grandparents, aunts, and uncles. They were all law enforcement. And, for me, the situational connection is I grew up one way and with the perception of policing and just how it's done based on my own experiences. And then when I got to college is when I started to have a lot of different interactions with police that was contrary to what I had when I was growing up. So just kind of I got a couple of different perspectives, and I've kind of come full circle. So I'm interested in seeing other perspectives, obviously. So that's what it is.
Appreciate you, TJ. Appreciate you. And my last but not least is I'm Joe Saunders, and so my connection is I'm currently a Stonington police officer, father of two. I grew up in Prince George's County, and I worked Montgomery County for 10 years, and then I've spent my last 10 years up here. So I bring about 20 years of law enforcement experience, but I've been a black man for 42 years. So for me, I'm straddling both sides of the fence when it comes to the issues that are currently going on in the United States. So it brings a lot of confusion, definitely some frustration. But I'm hoping, the six of us can get together and at least open a dialogue, maybe agreeing to disagree, but, just open that dialogue, that line of communication, because I think that's what's been missing from the community in general, the police community and the general community is just people just being quiet and just listening and hearing the other side and trying to gain an understanding of the other side. So that's what we hope to accomplish here tonight, gentlemen. I appreciate all you guys coming on. We're going to review that Midland, Texas traffic stop. If you're not familiar with it, the driver failed to stop at a stop sign. He kept going. As he kept going, he ended up in a driveway, I believe, of his parents or his grandmother, either one. And when he jumped out of the car, the officer pulled a gun on him. Now you have a white officer and a black driver. And so the traffic stop could take a lot of different turns from there. Fortunately, everybody made it out alive. But what we're trying to do here tonight is just gain perspective. Greg and I are going to talk about, what happens when we click those lights on, what's our mentality. And we want to hear your perspective, as black men, as a father of two African-American kids, what your mental mindset is when those lights go on behind you, and if you were that guy, what you might be feeling when you in his shoes. CJ, you run that video for us. Appreciate you.
I think you're going right from that Facebook page, CJ. Are you muted, bud?
Unmute yourself, CJ.
Can everybody see the screen?
No, where is
we see you still.
we still see?
Yeah. Okay.
It's important to know you're going right from the Facebook page, bud.
Here you go.
There it goes.
So Joe, I think it's just important to note that that this is the Facebook page from the PD where the officer was. So the captions there are from the police department themselves. So just so that everybody understands what that sort of is, where this came from.
Hey, Greg, just let me know when you want to pause it.
Yep.
Or yeah,
Mike,
anybody.
Everybody can see it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, CJ. You guys feel free to jump in when you think you might want to pause it and what you might want to talk about.
So I got a question right now. Was that the stop sign that he ran?
Yes.
I can see he rolled right through it.
Yeah. So
Wait, okay, hold up. See, I'm off the break. When
hold
did,
it one second.
I thought. Go ahead.
so how from right here you can't tell if he stopped or not?
In the video, you can't. I agree. I question that. I stopped it myself several times, exactly what you just did, and tried to determine, did he roll through it or not? And I do want to say that I know, and I think everybody should be aware of this, that when you stop at a stop sign and actually come to a complete stop, or you feel that you do, a lot of times your wheels are still rolling. And I think that's sort of semantical, really.
100%.
Yeah. So I agree. It's tough to tell from that camera angle if he actually
Okay.
stopped.
Because I asked that because you'll see as we go on, it looks like he's stopping at the other stop signs.
Yeah, I think he definitely stopped.
That was clear, the second one.
Yeah. And I think it's important too. The reason I bring that up is because in my experience, many times I've watched people roll through stop signs and they are adamant that they stopped. And they're not lying. They felt that they stopped, but I could see their tires still rolling. So I think, there's right off the bat, we're at a misunderstanding as to whether or not he stopped, and not us right now, but the driver, I believe based on this video that in that driver's mind, he stopped at that stop sign. And I think he honestly thinks he did.
I agree with that.
Yeah, he full stop there. Like he paused.
Yep.
Right. So,
Big
but I think
alarm.
so. I think we have to take in consideration. You want to hit the pause, but real quick.
Hey, can I just interrupt for one second? I'm sorry. So you go back to the beginning of the video. There's actually a sort of a little caveat there where it says the infraction actually happened before the prior to the activation of the video system. So we may not be seeing the actual the violation. So.
All right. Thanks, Ab. But I still want to say that it's many traffic stops where people are fully convinced that they stopped even if they didn't, and that they're not lying. They really believe they did.
And I think too, when we're looking at that, he may be under the assumption that he stopped at that the officer stopped him for the second stop sign, which he clearly, in his mind, definitely stopped at. The first one, in his mind, might not even have just been on his radar. So, that's probably a direction that he goes every day. He's used to, kind of like rolling through that thing. And then the second one, he stops because now he's looking behind his rearview mirror. He see the man behind him. So he's like, oh, I got to come to a complete stop on this one. Like take my foot off the gas, pump that brake, and look both ways. Then, and then get it going. All right, go ahead, let it ride.
All right, so you want to pause there, CJ? So what we sort of skipped through, so that the driver doesn't stop right away, and he's now pulled into a home. So if I'm the police officer in that car, this driver has brought me to a location that when I stop a car, and I think this one had tinted windows, but oftentimes you don't even know how many people in the car to start with. And now he's brought me apparently intentionally to a location that has increased my amount of unknowns exponentially, because you can only fit so many people in a car, but I have no idea who's in that house. In addition, when you think about weapons can be stored in a house very easily, legally, and more people's weapons are stored in their house than in their car. So now he's, in my mind, increased my possibility of a weapon on this scene now. So not stopping right away and now picking apparently a specific house to go to has now got me as a police officer at a very heightened level of awareness because I'm by myself.
Greg, that's a great point, and I actually took notes on that. It took him 30 seconds from the time that it indicated that the lights came on to when he pulled off. Now, like I said, from my background, I always felt like you should always pull over where the safest place to pull over would be. Because I've seen like the videos where, police officers are out and there's cars that come by and a lot of stuff can happen. So I've been pulled over where I've gone, a block or two to like a safer area that's well lit and it's not going to stop traffic. That's my thinking is don't just pull over in the middle of nowhere where no one can see you and, I'm exposed, the cop's exposed. He obviously knows where this is. It's a driveway. So from his perspective, if I'm him, I'm not thinking, oh, the house is more dangerous. I'm thinking it's actually safer.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back to that real quick. Don't hit play yet. So, just from you guys in general, when those lights go on, what's your thoughts? What's your thought process?
Scared to death.
Why?
Because it's just not comfortable. Like you don't know. The first thing I do if I get pulled over, I'm like, I go through the checklist. I wasn't speeding. I wasn't this. I wasn't that. Obviously, he's pulling me over for something. But there's been past experiences where it's like one of them situations you never know what kind of mood or what kind of day that police officer has had, and you just might be the dude that's just gonna catch his attitude for no reason. You could do everything in your power to be respectful, to answer all the questions, to do things, but from the encounters that I've had in the past, most of them have gone well, but I've had a couple that kind of weren't the most pleasant. So like when you see those lights come on, you immediately start thinking like, all right, like, you know, my father taught me how to speak to police. You know, I understand everybody's just trying to get home safe. Let's all get home safe. But you just never know the approach or what kind of approach the officer is going to take with you. So I naturally go on high alert. Like, all right, like how is this going to go? That's the nervous part. Is how is this going to go for me?
You know, my first thing is, like you said, it's similar to that, but my first is always like, I look around to see, you know, I like to keep my awareness. I always look around because I always assume the lights are on for somebody else. I don't ride dirty per se. Like I usually do a little walk around the car, make sure my lights aren't out. And I'm like, all right, well, lights are on. Maybe I'm in the way. Maybe he just got a call. That's my first thought. The second thought when they continue to follow me is like, here we go.
Pipe, what you think? What you thinking, Pipe?
Yeah, it's a fear. It's an immediate fear and concern when you see the lights behind you, and you see they are for you. And from my experience, most instances, I'm like, what is this about? Now, it's been speeding, and I'm looking like, yeah, if I was on the fringe, and like, okay, you decided to pick on me when these other cars were flying past me, like, okay. But I've had the roll stop sign where I swore I stopped. I've had the officer let me know, like, the light for my license plate was out. And I guess those, I mean, like I said before, most of my experience have been fine. You know, sometimes I had the cop just be a jerk, and I'm like, okay, I don't know, we having a bad day, or that's just who he is. But I guess my frustration has been when you just walk to my car and don't explain why you pulled me over. I've had too many times where I felt I had to ask. And I've been respectful, like, Mr. Officer, what was the infraction? Why am I getting pulled over? And I guess it's like you don't feel you owe me an explanation. Like, if you know, like, he may not know his tail lights out. He may have the last time I got pulled over for a road stop sign, I swore I stopped. And I was in this community. It was middle of the day. It was like 25 miles per hour. I'm going real slow because I don't know if kids are out. I'm like, stop. I said, I know I stopped at that stop sign. And it was quick. Boom, ticket, kept it moving. But like I said, when he was like, hold up, what? I had to ask him, like, what's the officer, what was it? He's, oh, you over the stop sign. I'm like, okay, thank you. I'm like, you didn't feel you needed it. Why I have to ask that?
So just more of an explanation, just to kind of put you at ease.
Yeah, hey, and it's been 50-50. I've had some, as soon as they walk to the car, hey, you were going whatever. License registration. Like, as soon as they walk to the car, oh, your back headlights out. You know, go take care of, here's the thing, you got 30 days. I mean, just off the top, they tell me, boom, this is what you need to do. Smooth, thank you.
So that's
actually gave me advice, man. Go over here and get it taken care of. Right. You know. But so other times it's been like, hey, man, tell me what's up.
Yeah. So so would you agree that by him or her explaining it to you kind of puts that tension at ease when you
a whole lot. Like, I know I'm about to get a ticket or some type of infraction potentially, but at least I know what this is about.
Right.
When you just, as soon as you see I have the window down and we greet each other, this is why you got pulled over.
Well, Pike, I will say this. I agree with you, and that helps. But to me, I've been pulled over so many times. The main thing that sets the tone is when they introduce themselves and just give you this basic time of day. Like, you do that to a stranger, like, hey, good afternoon, I'm such and such. Like, hey, hello, I'm so and so. Like, license and registration, and then they go into the why. But when they start with just the general common courtesy, respect of another human being, those stops have gone very well. The ones where they just come out and they're like, where you going? Or license registration, they don't even acknowledge you as a person. Those have always been my bad stops.
No, I'm basically saying the same thing. It's like it always
I
was
agree.
a greeting and explanation of this is why we over here right now.
Adam, you've had any experiences being pulled over? What's your mentality when those lights go on?
Yeah, it's a fair question. And even for me, I mean, like, listen, I think it's human nature. If the lights come on behind you, you immediately, you're getting nervous and anxiety. Now, granted, I don't think it's the same for me. I'm now coming at it from a perspective of, as my son grows up and he starts to drive and he starts to have these experiences. Now, what are we going to teach him? And would it be different than how I may react, right? And the reality is it probably will be, right? It'd be vigilance and awareness and all those things. But I think it was to Jay's point earlier, right? We're always going to teach them the right way to handle these situations and respect and all those things. So yeah, I think there is that human nature in itself is to be nervous when you're getting pulled over, just because that's a situation you don't want to be in ever.
Okay.
Understood. Go ahead, CJ, hit play.
All right.
Step out of the vehicle, man. $26, $22, $78. Hey, come here. Okay, I don't care. We're on a traffic stop. Y'all get back right now. Get back. Go away.
You want to pause it there, CJ?
Step back, dude.
So it
See,
looks like
this is the part that kind of got under my skin.
Okay. You know what? Here's what we're gonna do, because a lot of us seen the video. Let's let the video play, because it's about 3 minutes 20. Let's let it play, and then once we let it go all the way through, we'll come back.
You're not. Okay, walk back. Walk back.
Why you stop me? Why you stop me? Tell me why you stop me. Hey, tell me why you stop me.
Get back.
What's your reason to stop me?
Show us your hands right now. Show us.
CJ, can you pause it real quick?
Yeah, I had a question about that. You can see his hands and there's nothing in it. Why does he keep saying, show me your hands?
Actually, I can actually answer that for you. But what the point I wanted to make is you guys just got done saying that the first thing you want to hear is why you were pulled over. And what does this driver say? What does he say?
He's yelling,
why'd you stop? So I think that you're, sort of, speculation, for lack of a better term, as to what this driver may be thinking. That's what we're doing based on our own personal experiences, and that's why we're here. But I think it's spot on, and it just resonates right there, because that's what he's saying. He wants to know why he was stopped. So I think that was a great point that you made earlier. I mean, I can answer. I'll tell you what. I agree with you. His hands are clearly visible, and the officer is saying, "Show me your hands," multiple times, and that's a fair question. Joe, do you want to roll it to the end, or you want to just pause?
Yeah. Let's roll it to the end, and then we'll come back, because once we see the whole thing, then we can come back and just hit certain parts of it.
But CJ, I'll explain that to you.
All right, cool.
Listen. Okay. You ran a stop sign. Chill out, bro. Chill out. Weston, is there anyone else in the vehicle that you can see? The Charger? Okay. Watch the vehicle.
Granny. I just want my granny. I don't want nothing. Just my granny.
Back up.
Okay, please don't touch her. Y'all, she is 90 years old. Please.
Hey, everyone, back up right now. Back up right now.
You guys in it.
I'm gonna help her up, and we can get her up, okay?
Well, help me then. Do something. You just fucking sitting there, bro.
Why did y'all put this one over? I already told you, you ran that stop sign on me.
I didn't run no stop sign. I did not run no stop sign. I didn't get no bill. I did not run no stop sign. 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 I did not run no stop sign.
What? Let go. We're going.
I didn't run no stop sign. I did not run no stop sign. I didn't get no video. I did not run no stop sign. I did not run no stop sign. I did not run no stop sign. I'm not running no stop sign. I'm not running no stop sign. I'm not running no stop sign. Stop sign! Why you stand on a stop sign? Why you stand on a stop sign, bro? Why you stand on a stop sign? Why you stand on a stop sign? Why you ask? I knew you was behind me. Like, what's up with that?
All right. So just to jump back, I lost you guys, I think. Are you guys still there?
Yep.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know. My screen went blank or something. I don't know what happened. I must not have touched anything. But I'll fix it in a sec. But just to go back to
TJ, can you go back to that video?
Yeah, I'm trying to go back on it. Let's see.
All right, there we go.
oh, there
Right.
we go.
You want to go to
So-
a specific part?
Yeah, CJ, can you just jump to where the officer unholsters, or where he displays
I
his
think
fire
they're
on there?
Right about there.
Yeah, somewhere in there. So, just to give the officers perspective.
Okay, I don't care. We're on a traffic stop. Y'all get back right now. Get back.
Right here, even just slightly after. So, the video obviously cuts here and there if you watch it, and there's 6 minutes where the driver stays in the car, and a lot of things can happen in 6 minutes. So, if I'm this officer, I'm being distracted right now by a person of unknown intent that's coming up and disobeying my commands to get away from my traffic stop. So now I know I'm outnumbered because somebody was driving that car and now this person's here. And I still don't know how many people are in the car or in the house. And I know I'm outnumbered. What happens next is out of the, you can't see, but presumably his peripheral, because he's dealing with the female subject, the driver's door swings open very quickly. And that's the point where he unholsters, because in probably just about every training video this officer's seen, after somebody sits in the car for 6 minutes and the door flies open, they come out guns blazing. I know I've seen many, many training videos that way. And I know that if I'm in that position, I'm thinking this is getting real bad real fast for me. So I'm assuming that that's why he responded in the way that he did. And I want to touch on here. I think a lot of public misperception sometimes is that we are on a routine traffic stop for a stop sign, and there's no reason to have your gun out at a routine traffic stop. I know I get asked that question a lot. There are police officers that, at the most routine things, have lost their lives in the last 6 months. Down in Florida, a state trooper was on a disabled motorist, and him and the motorist had multiple conversations over the course of an hour. In fact, the trooper sat in his car and did paperwork while they waited for the tow truck. The tow truck shows up. The driver, understands what the tow is going to be, gets upset, turns around, shoots and kills the officer. And they were on there for an hour with no problem. I mean, it doesn't get any more routine than that. So for us, there's not a lot of routine, even though I know the public sees it that way. But in the moment, you never know, because when these things happen, we all hear about it. And that's the perception that we get of what happens out there. CJ, to your earlier point, and I think it's a great question, and I'm glad that you brought it up too. That's a training thing. So he's got his firearm trained down on the guy, and he's continuously saying, "Show me your hands," when his hands are clearly visible, clearly in the video, and obviously to him. I had firearms training yesterday, and when we're doing firearms training, the instructors are always telling any use of force, or use your verbal commands, use your verbal commands. So I don't know how much time this officer has on, but for me, for 18 years, 3-4 times a year, when I have my use of force training, as I'm on holstering, I'm saying to a paper target, "Show me your hands, get on the ground, show me your hands, get on the ground, show me your hands." So I think the officer in that moment, being overwhelmed by everything that's happening now, is reverting to his repetitive training and habit from however many years of continuously saying that when he's in that position. He even actually says, if you notice, "Get back." Well, back is not where you want that guy to go, because back is towards that further unknown. So I know that no police officer wants that guy to go back towards the house. That's the last place for him to go. But his repetitive habits in that position are to say, "Get back." So you hear him say, "Get back." So that's why he says it. And, I'll just pause there for you guys, sort of the driver's perception at this point.
Yeah, the thing, I appreciate what you're saying, because it, like you said, these videos go viral, and it is a backstory, and sometimes we don't get the backstory. Like it was 6 minutes, he didn't come out, but this is what, like, you want to call it politically way of saying, but it's clearly a cultural disconnect here.
Mm-hmm.
Once it's a white officer, and that young man looks very young. Once, and then, so, you have a young black man, you are a white officer. And I saw the angle from the family member's angle. So not just your weapon, I see multiple weapons pointed at a single young man who is clearly showing that is fear. He's panicking because he's scared. Once a 90-year-old grandmother is willing to walk out there and take a bullet for her grandchild, none of those officers took a leadership position to say, we need to calm this situation. Even when they were trying to be helpful, in my estimation, they escalated it. One officer charging the family is a lot less threatening than 5 or 6, but one still having a weapon in his hand. So I understand initially maybe why he had the weapon out, like to your point about, I don't know who else to go jump out of the car. But after a period of time, I think it was time to assess the situation and see, okay, we need to de-escalate this, because this kid about to have an emotional breakdown. Why is he cramped up in the back of a car? And so there was no physical harm, to him, but that family is left with the psychological trauma of that experience.
So I
And I don't think it had to get to that point.
So I
just
think
want to.
I think to your
Sorry.
point. Oh, go ahead. So I think to your point, probably when we talk about, because if you hey CJ, just move it up like a hot minute to where he's got his gun actually pointed at right there. So right before that, you see him pointing to the crowd. He's telling the crowd to give back, and then he's got his gun pointing to the young man. And I think from our perspective, the reason why that those guns have stayed out pipe and it is because the car with the tinted windows, you still got the back doors and stuff shut, hasn't been cleared yet. You can see when they walk up to the car, you can hear the officer say, "Hey man, keep your eyes on the car. Keep your eyes on the car." And I totally get what you're saying. At the end of the day, we're looking at this and we're saying, "Hey man, this is for a stop sign. This is what we're doing for a stop sign. It's no different than George Floyd for the fraud of the $20 bill. So when we see stuff like this, we're like, man, like it's got to be a better way. It's got to be a better way to do it. But as far as us approaching that car, until we clear that car, I can totally understand why he hadn't put his gun away. But once that car was cleared, I think everybody's guns went away. But I can also see from that young man's perspective that now I'm staring down the barrel of not one gun, but this guy's called for backup, and 3-4 other officers now have their gun right at me. And based on history of what's been going on for the last, 10, 11 years since Mike Brown, I might not make it out of this alive. And so I see both sides of it, but I also understand at a particular point in time why he had not put his gun away, because they hadn't cleared that car. And I understand too. We say, hey man, the dude's 90-year-old grandmother outside. Like let's calm this down. Fair argument. And I'm not sure how you would have de-escalated that to get her to go away, except to go up and have somebody talk to her and just somebody should have escorted her out of the way, especially when they came up and wanted to physically detain him. She shouldn't have been anywhere near there. But it's easy to sit back and say that now while we sitting here, on June, what's today? June 3rd, and this happened, May 16th. But in the heat of that moment, I can understand that officer's tunnel vision, and he's now focusing on CJ. Yeah, if you could go right here, keep moving up for a second.
If you look at
right here, so at a point go back to that for me. At the point right there, all right, you can see now the crowd over here, and still see right here. They still had not cleared that car yet with the tinted windows. Now, could somebody have jumped out? You're saying, come on, man, like, the dude's out on the ground, nobody else is in the car. That's a fair statement. But until we get to an angle where we can see that, which they still never really opened the back door to really clear that car out, that's why those guns stayed out. But I understand, again, where you're coming from. This lady's 90 years old. Like, put your guns away and let's do this another way. Fair.
So
go ahead.
I have a question in this same scenario. Like, so yes, you're thinking your safety, but like, you got to be thinking like the safety of everybody around. So you have that person over here sitting on the ledge, the grandmother, and for the life of me, I don't know if that's how it's done, but they didn't secure the area, I guess. Like, I feel like there are way too many people in harm's way before you even get to clearing the vehicle. Like, no one's taking the initiative to say, hey, look, I understand you're concerned for this person. You can stand at this distance right here safely, like out of the way. Like, so you have somebody, I guess, because he has multiple people. If it's one person, I understand you like, look, I don't need anybody else around. You have multiple people, so someone can kind of facilitate how this needs to proceed, as opposed to, it just seemed like a hodgepodge. It was unorganized. It was just a hot mess, and everybody's jumping in. And you got a guy who's clearly not a threat with a knee on his back and a grandmother on the ground because no one took any initiative to organize this whole situation. My other question, I do have a question. Don't most squad cars have like a laptop where you told me earlier that the guy was in the car for like 6 minutes. Were they running the tags to see if like it was registered to somebody who had a warrant or something? Like, what would make them think that the car is dangerous?
Because you can't see inside of it. So right now you're dealing with an unknown, because this is down in Texas, so their tent laws is a little bit different. It's like being down in Florida and being down in Miami. Everything's tented down there. Where it's up here, you have a certain tent that you can wear, but we have to be able to see. Down there, because of the heat and things, the tent laws are completely different. So, if you hit play right now, with the tent on the back of that car. So if you pause it right there. Mm-hmm. All right. So again, we're going to assume that nobody's in that car. But if I'm in there, can you see me? No.
He still has a gun, so they haven't cleared the car yet.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. That's why when we're saying, hey, the 90-year-old grandmother is out there, you're absolutely right. But at that point in time, we still had not cleared that car yet. So, in actuality, maybe what should have happened was maybe two more officers go up to that car, clear it, with their shielding the 90-year-old grandmother away from what was going on and putting their bodies in between them and the car, going up and clearing it. And then you have another two officers that are dealing with the grandmother and the gentleman laying on the ground. Adam, I know you had something to say. Go ahead.
Yep. So that's all right. So I don't know if any of you guys had a chance to go back and watch any of the other footage. So from the backseat camera, it was all the full the full time. So I did. I actually went back and I watched a lot of it, and it was interesting because this young man. So I actually made quite a few notes. He keeps bringing up the word scared. So clearly there was just a ton of fear. Like he was just scared right from the second this all happened. And he actually mentioned that he had personally had experiences in the past that were not great. So right there again, now, and it's hard again, you don't know that in the moment, but clearly he had some experiences that led him to this reaction. And it turns out he was calling his parents in those 6 minutes. Now, granted, they don't know that in the moment again, so I can't, you can't speculate there. But the level of panic and frustration that he has, especially if you watch the backseat cameras, that he has, and you mentioned about mental trauma. Like to me, that was, I actually literally wrote that down. The mental trauma that he was clearly suffering, was very, very apparent. So the piece that I thought was interesting was as the officer had his gun pulled, and he was yelling at him to come towards him. To me, that was an escalation, because how could he possibly expect him to walk towards him with his gun drawn, right? As we've seen tons of videos that ended in a bad way for the person that had the gun drawn on them. So those were just a couple things I wanted to point out. But I thought the footage, and again, we don't have the ability to see that here in the edited version, but there was quite a bit actually in some of the other footage that provided, I think, a lot more backstory. So I just wanted to kind of point that out.
So just
So
to touch on that, Greg, you got something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to address, CJ had asked about, running the plate, and I want to address that quickly to say that, when we absolutely, I assume this guy does too. I mean, just about every patrol car in America, well, I guess maybe not in some of the cities, but, we have the ability to run the plate. But all that really tells you is who the registered owner is, whether or not it's stolen, and what the plate belongs on, et cetera. That's not necessarily an indicator as to how you can assess a threat. Now, certainly if it's a stolen car, your threat assessment is up. If it comes up with, this is registered to somebody wanted for murder, those things would certainly get your, your threat assessment super high.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. So so that's that. And the other thing is, I don't know prior to the video starting, but I think from the start of the video, he never really had an opportunity to turn his attention to the computer, because he's trying to get this car to stop, so his attention's on the road. And then when he does stop, he's trying to talk to the driver, and he's already getting distracted by this person coming up. And in that moment, I certainly wouldn't turn my attention to a computer screen at all. And then even if you type it in, now you have to physically stop to view the the information that comes back. Now, if it's a state you're used to, very easy. But like, if I were to run a Texas plate today, it's going to take me a while to sift through it, because I'm not familiar exactly what all the information is the way Texas comes back. And Adam, I just wanted to touch on one thing that you said too, from a police officer point of view. And I fully understand what you're saying. If someone's pointing a gun at you saying, come towards me, and you're thinking, hell no, I get that. I think the officers in that moment was trying to get the person that he was interested in, which is the driver of that car, away from those threats of the unknowns, the unknown of who may or may not be in the car and in that house. So I think with the officer, if I'm that officer, I'm telling him come to me. The reason I'm doing that is because I want him to get to an area that I've deemed safe for me to be able to interact with him. Whether it's going to, I assume if the guy walked in, probably would have taken him into, put him in handcuffs to at least detain him at that point. Well, I would assume.
Sure.
But I think what he's trying to do is get him into a position of where he's got some cover if he needs it, et cetera. So I think that was for the officer, just to provide, the officer's perspective at the time.
Yeah, I think you hit that you hit that right on the head, Greg. We're trained, and I don't know, you guys obviously wouldn't know it, but when we do felony stops or things like that, and I know this isn't felony stop, again, this is traffic stop, not to lose sight of it, but we pull people back away from the cars. We have them come to us, so that we can maintain some type of cover, which is behind our car or anything like that to get that driver away from, like I said, what is perceived right now as unknown, and that unknown right now is his vehicle, and along with whatever's going on in the house. Let's keep rolling up to about right here, TJ.
Okay, I was gonna say I got a question. When is
Yep.
he actually placed? Is he placed under arrest right here?
Well,
And what-
yeah, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
This may be a foolish question, but why was he arrested?
I don't know.
Was he detained or was he arrested?
Well, he was arrested at some point.
They pulled him out.
They said he was arrested.
He was arrested.
I can't answer that. I don't. Joe probably won't be able to answer it exactly either. My assumption, and this is purely an assumption, is that he was taken into custody for, in Connecticut we would call it interfering.
Okay.
I don't know why he was ultimately arrested, because it seems to me it was a traffic stop that he was non-compliant at the traffic stop for sure. So I'm assuming that it was for a what we call interfering, or what you know is resisting or something like that. That's my assumption, but I don't know.
Wow.
But it's questionable. I don't disagree. It's
Okay. Well, help me then. Do something. You just fucking sitting there, bro.
So I want to jump in here. So just while I was in college, one of the things we did, we brought the NAACP back, and what we did, like a little, like kind of what we're doing, like a roundtable discussion. One of the things was how to get pulled over, and that's why it was a good question earlier. Someone asked, when was he arrested? Because if he's arrested, one of the first things we said is, all right, once you know you're under arrest and you have the right to remain silent, just be quiet. I don't understand, if he's been arrested, why he's continuing to say anything.
Well, that may speak to, which was mentioned previously, that he had some past experiences. So it may be a PTSD thing that he's going through in that moment. And that, like I said, I saw this video and I saw from the family's video, and my heart was heavy for him, because I was like, you definitely not helping matters by continuing to be so animated. But I'm like, this is coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
And this is not just because the cops pulled me over.
Mm-hmm.
And then from the police officer perspective, and particularly white officers, as soon as you realize that's a black young man and black family, they are scared of me. And they need to be told that up front. I have a guy I know who's a DC police officer from Southeast DC, been a police officer his whole professional life. And with all the gentrification, meaning the city's getting more white, that's the code word for that. They hire more white officers, and more white officers are not from the area.
Mm.
So you now bringing in people into a city that still has the old DC in a lot of pockets, and then you got the gentrified DC kind of intertwined. And he said he's told the white officers that are new, hey, look, you got a strike against you, because they already go be scared and concerned when they see you coming solely because you're white. When you go in certain neighborhoods, and if those officers police that neighborhood, they know the demographics. Okay, so they know they probably policing mostly segregated as the communities are. That's probably a mostly black area that they in. So once you see this young man is losing it because he's having some mental breakdown, and you know that's a young black man, a black family, there's probably past experience, and they see it's a white officer. And they should just know that off the break. If that boy was 21 or if he was 71, that's gonna always be there. You're not getting benefit. You're not getting benefit of the doubt.
That's important.
You're not getting benefit. The white officer's not getting benefit of the doubt, and so the the level of interaction calms me to say, okay, I may be all right here. So this is, I respect the textbook training, but also judgment has to be used and the situation has to be assessed to understand all the other dynamics that are coming into play. So now my training can be effective. Because you got to make split-second decisions. But before anything starts, I know what I'm dealing. They should know they're dealing with that off the break.
Right. And Jamal, that's sort of exactly what I was hoping would come out of today, was to hear somebody like you candidly tell somebody like me, hey, just pause for a minute and understand where he's coming from. You know your tactics, you know where you're coming from. Pause for a minute and think about where he's coming from too. You know, you perceive him as a threat, but he perceives you as a threat too. So I think that was important what you said. I'm just gonna follow up quick and ask you pointed questions. You know, if you're that young man, and let's assume you haven't sort of reached a point where you're so upset that you have the auditory exclusion, because that's not gonna matter then. But let's assume that you're getting upset. As a white police officer, what can I say in that moment to gain your trust in me that I'm not the guy that you need to be afraid of? What can I say? What type of encounter or what tools would you give me to put in my tool bag to have this young man trust me? What can I do?
Well, I thought my thoughts were, after watching the 2 videos, I think you all explained the gun to, why the gun was pulled. But even after that, to talk him down. And I wish he said to him, he kept saying, hey, you ran a stop sign. His whole posture was very defensive, and to me escalated. And so they feeding each other. He sees he's freaking out and the cops yelling. So he didn't even have a calm tone to say, look, you ran the stop sign. This is what I need you to do for me. I need you to stay calm, lay on the ground, put your hands behind your back. Okay? The family, I need you all to, just if the tone was more calm and compassionate, because like you said, the reason why we're here is over a stop sign. So I'm protecting myself because I don't know who someone may not be in the car, but also I need to get him to relax and let him know, first reason why we're here because you ran a stop sign. Okay? So to me, I wish he talked him down more and just gave him the second to see if he would calm down. Say, hey, look, you ran a stop sign. I need you to relax. He said calm down, but he's very animated telling him to calm down.
So
it's hard to say calm down when you got a gun kind of pointed at you. Can I just interrupt real quick, Jamal? Just I think if I'm in that situation, and if the, like Jamal's saying, if you talk to me calmly and between all the yelling and stuff like that, if you just tell me, this you roll the stop sign, if we all calm down here, it's a ticket or whatever, and we go about our way. You know what I mean? Like, just try to get me to understand, like, I'm not gonna get in the back of the police car. You're not gonna arrest me over a roll stop sign. Then in my mind, I'm like, all right, well, guns are away, everybody's calmed down. Maybe I can hear things a little more clearly. It's kind of difficult to process that. You can, like, obviously, like we've talked about how afraid he is, but when you got guns kind of drawn, I've never been in that situation, but I'm assuming the last thing you want to hear is any sort of, like, you're not processing anything like in an understanding manner. You know what I mean? It's just like, I'm afraid, I'm scared, I'm not listening to anything you're saying right now. And I think, like, kind of like Jamal said, the tone kind of dropped a little bit. I think just a little, like, just kind of calmed down. Maybe if he would have dropped his tone, the kid may have, or the guy in that video may have had to kind of calm himself down and understand and hear what the hell the officer's even saying. You know what I mean? It was just chaos. Like, it's
Greg, I mean, I'll jump in. I agree with both Jay and Jamal about the tone, but I think even before you get there, one of the first things you could probably do as a police officer, as a white police officer, this works for anyone, is to humanize the situation. Hey, what's your name? I'm Officer Howard. Like, what's your name? All right, we're gonna get through this. And I think once you humanize and you have a name to it, like, hey, because they like to, sometimes I've seen guys, be combative with your officer. I'm Officer so-and-so. What's your name? Because now it's a person. It's not subject, male subject A, male subject. I know that's how you guys got to write it up. But now you're saying, what's your name? All right, call you this, and you call me Officer so-and-so. This is the process. You set the expectations, and that could be done. I know you're trained to use your voice to control the situation, but you can. It's easy to introduce yourself to someone, regardless, and then whatever has to transpire can transpire, and that doesn't take a lot of time. And it's one of the easiest things you can do is just to humanize someone. Say, hey, look, is this your grandma? Can you ask grandma to step back? Or hey, what's going on? What's your name? All right, this is my name. And then now both people kind of see each other as humans. It's like, I don't see it as some cop or some white cop just pulling me over. That's Officer Howard, or this Officer so-and-so. You can't undo that once someone has introduced yourself. So I think that's one of the first things that any cop can do initially.
Well said, CJ. Well said.
Really well said, yeah.
I've seen videos of someone holding hostages in a home and they know it with guns in the house. Talk too common than that.
True.
Yeah, I think there's and to your point, CJ, when you say it doesn't take a lot of time, I mean, he said multiple times, "Show me your hands," when his hands were visible. So I think for me, one takeaway from this particular part of the video and from hearing from you guys is to retrain myself to not have that repetitive same thing over time, but retrain myself to be able to engage in the situation. So like you're saying, instead of saying "show me your hands" all the time, if I said, "What's your name, man?" and he out of his habit would immediately respond to that, because you're used to somebody asks you your name, you immediately respond with your name. You've done it for years. And now I can call him by name and probably have his more attention and talk him down and say my name too.
100%.
I think that's great. That's a great point.
I think it's weird. My degree's in communications, but I hardly ever get to use it, but I probably use it all the time. Another thing is you had two people talking, 0 people listening.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you also had 2 people. So it's something called coding. Like some people will have this ability to code, like you'll hear an accent or a certain tone or a rhythm in their voice. So if you're yelling, "Let me see your hands, let me see your hands. What did I do? What I did?" Now everyone, they're reflecting back what you're giving. But if you're talking calmly, people have to kind of lean in to kind of hear what you're saying. Like you're talking directly to me, you're not yelling at me, you're talking. So now I need to talk back to you. So you kind of have that, they will reflect your tone. So if you come, you want to control the situation, if you're cool, they'll be cool. I know that's not 100%.
No, of
Just
course.
in general, if you're asking, a calm voice usually can get it. I mean, he's already nervous. We've established that. But that would definitely de-escalate the situation without having to do anything other than reflect. Like, I want him to speak to me this way, him or her to speak to me this way. I'm going to speak to them that way. And when you start listening, you hear, all right, I hear he's afraid. And then you can kind of adjust on the fly.
Because even with all the textbook training in any profession, there's that room and that space for discretion.
Yep.
And that's what I didn't see was used here. Because when you don't want to use discretion, you go to what the textbook says or what the video I watched said. But within still following all those rules, you can handle this situation differently. And, sometimes a disconnect in communication, it can be age difference, it can be racial, it can be gender. And what I saw there was first the racial disconnect, because I think even if it's a black officer, the black person, especially a young black man, go have a sense of fear. It's gonna be escalated when they see nothing but white officers surrounded by them, and that's the kind of like, okay, I need to use some discretion here. Once I check all the boxes and kind of say, okay, the scene is kind of clear, I'm kind of sure nobody's in the car. how do we calm this situation down? And seeing videos from two angles, I mean, my stomach was turned the first time. I was like, how this go play out? I mean, Philando Castile was told the cop, I was just boom. We had an officer in PG County. He wouldn't let the guy said, I gotta pee. And he ain't let him, he peed in his car. And he shot him 7 times and killed him. Because he's mad he peed in the back of his car. So even when you think as a citizen, I'm checking all the boxes, I don't know how this gonna end up. And I know, like Joe's like a brother to me. So on a personal level, him in that profession I'm always got a concern for him. Because the situation, Greg, you explained in Florida could happen at any time.
Right.
You sitting there being helpful to somebody, pulled over, got the little fire sticks out, their car broke down. And you sit there, wait for them with the tow truck. Quick example, I didn't even tell Joe this. I live in the county where Joe used to be an officer. Mm-hmm. And I was right near the DC line. I was at a stoplight. Young black man was on a bike. A white woman officer was helping him up. So I don't know if she was trying to help him up to detain him. A black pickup truck busts a U right in front of me, jumps out the car. His friend's walking up. He yells at the friend. The guy, he unmarked car, not even in uniform, jumps out the car, says, get on the ground, put your hands behind your back. Now, the friend was calm. He went on the ground, put his hand behind his back. He cuffed him, sat him on the corner, and I pulled away, and I kind of looked, and he was explaining to him why he handcuffed him. And my assumption was, you walking up on it, I don't know who you are walking up on the scene of this, addressing your friend. So I kind of understood why he did it, but once he did it, he told him what this was about. Now, what helped that situation was everybody was calm. He kept asking, what did I do? Because I could hear it open out my window. What did I do? What did I do? So I guess they were telling him, and he wasn't animated. And then the officer wasn't animated.
Perfect example.
So I saw a situation, and I saw that 2 days after I saw the first time I saw this video. Now I said, okay, I don't know if this guy was on a bike and he broke some road law because the first officer was on a bike. Did he do an infraction? He didn't think he did. But I'm like, okay, even though I'm like, okay, ain't great seeing somebody handcuffed. I said he didn't handcuff him aggressively. He wasn't rough with him. He sat him up and he talked to him.
And it ended much better.
And everybody,
Yeah.
The other officers walked up on the scene, and you can tell they were trying to explain to him the situation. But I got to give credit to both parties, because even the person in the cuff stayed calm, even though he was like, what the heck is this? But the officer didn't escalate it either. And it was mostly white cops. So I'm like, and that's probably the overwhelming majority of how those actions go, and these things like this, but, social media and stuff go viral. But I'm like, okay, that's reasonable. Just for me, for my car, looking to see why that played out that way. And I wish this situation had a more reasonable conclusion. And now this young man, again, has added to the trauma he's already had. And that whole family that witnessed that. And I'll say it didn't have to be that way. It's just in my opinion.
Let me throw this out here. And since we're here talking on the subject of a traffic stop and things like that, give me your personal opinion. Put your feel out there. If this dude was white, does this go different?
Yes.
100%.
How?
I was going to ask you guys the same question.
Yeah. Because one, I don't think that officer would be as fearful, and I think he would have been more calmer, even if a white young man acted the same way.
Man.
And he may have felt, if it was a white community that didn't really have a lot of violent crime, maybe we don't see weapons. you know,
I'm gonna push back a little bit. We talking about the same scenario. Everybody's in the same situation as just a white kid, right?
And the kid steps out of the car is white.
Yep.
Kid steps out of the car is white after sitting in the car for 6 minutes. Everything's the same.
Everything's the same except for the driver. When he gets out of that car, he's white. Does this stop go different?
This is a tough one to say because if the dude gets out the car and he swings out the car, from your training, from what Greg was saying, your weapon probably should come out, right? Like if a dude's gonna sit in the car for 6 minutes and you don't know what's going on, who he's calling, who's in the house, anything, if Buddy hops out of the car, I'm assuming that the police officer is gonna probably pull their weapon, to make sure. Now I don't know if the gun stays drawn. I won't go that far, but I would assume from a police officer's perspective, a guy jumps out the car, you don't know, what's going on. You're probably gonna draw your weapon.
But tell me from a on a more personal level though, from a general public perception. You watching this video as a black man and you saying, "Hey
no.
man,
Of course,
if that dude get out the car and hear a white dude, does this stop go different?"
I'm gonna jump in. Look, 100%. It's Texas, right?
Yeah,
That door swings open to the white guy. Gun or not, the white guy's gonna be like, "What the hell are you stopping me for?" He's going. It's going. If he's yelling, he's not going to a whole bunch of times show me your hands. He might even pull his own gun out. Like that stops going completely different. And if he doesn't have, it can go a number of different ways if it's a white guy. But I guarantee it doesn't end up with the grandmother falling down. The grandmother, like you may have multiple people detained. It's in Texas, and it's a white guy. Like there's a certain level of, they're not afraid of the police. I've seen numerous times where they're like, "You work for me. What are you stopping me for? This is my house. Get off my property." It's going to be a completely different conversation.
Yeah, I think that thing calms down a lot sooner.
Oh,
Even if the gun,
I'm not disagreeing with that.
Yeah, even if the gun was drawn, like I said, again, I was like, why they draw guns? I think Greg and Joe, I was like, okay, that's valid, because we didn't know, like, until we saw this angle from the body camera. It was 6 minutes. I'm like, okay, why you police are behind? You need to get out the car. It's like, you don't be taking 6 minutes to get out the car. But even with that, I think this thing settles. I think he just leaves with a ticket. I don't think it escalates and it stays high at that level for an extended period of time.
I agree with Joe with that.
And let me and like with CJ's point, I've been in that part of the country. That's South a different beast.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I spent extended time when I was visiting my dad in Louisiana. I've been to Texas. I've driven through Mississippi. It's a whole nother world. Anybody, I don't care what your nationality is, your race is. If you grew up in the East Coast or Northeast and you have not spent time down there, it's culture shock.
Fair.
It's culture shock, and they so overt with all they isms down there, where people in the East Coast and Northeast a little more subtle. You're not sure, a little more subjective, a little more, implicit. Nah, they gonna make it known down there.
Yep.
I would say for me, definitively, it wouldn't matter to me the color of the person that jumped out of that car at all, personally. But I would ask you guys this: when you say that it would calm down quicker if it was a white person, it would go different, are you saying that the police officer would have responded different, or are you more saying that the driver himself escalated it because of his fear that he had from the beginning, because of the fear that's instilled in him of the police? So I guess what I'm saying is, do you think, a white man who didn't think he ran a stop sign is going to be afraid of the police and get so upset so quickly like this gentleman did because of the fear that he has being a black man being approached by the white police? Or is it maybe a combination?
I'd say combination.
I say
Yeah, I would have said the same thing, Greg. So just what you were saying, I think instinctively, I may not have the same reaction. You know what I mean? As one of these guys may. They may have instinctively, they're going to probably react a little differently than I would. That's just the reality of it.
I think the important takeaway. Sorry, go ahead, CJ.
I was gonna say I definitely think the driver would have responded. I don't think the driver would have been afraid to get pulled over. He would try to argue his case right there that he didn't run the stop sign.
I think for me, the takeaway on this is that at least up here, oftentimes, the public sort of has generally accepted the fact that the police go into a bunch of unknowns and they're willing to sort of relinquish that to us at times. And I think it's important for police officers to understand, even in my community here, like I said, that's predominantly white, that even if we don't have those issues here, the young black men in my community are watching the same videos. And I think it's important for me as a police officer to have the respect for them to say, hey, they're going to be a little fearful of me, and know that from the beginning so that I can immediately start to take those tools like CJ was talking about, like Jamal was talking about, and Jay, like saying, introduce myself quickly, even maybe, not so much more quickly, but when I start to see someone get upset, let it run through my brain that, hey, they're not getting upset to be not compliant. They get upset because they're scared. Like that's one of the possibilities of the reasons that I need to consider very quickly. And I think that that's a big takeaway for me from this.
Yeah, I had a white officer I used to bump into a lot. He seemed like a gem. He was from Detroit. And, I would ask him, hey, man, all this going on, man, how you doing? Last 4 or 5 years, all the viral videos, all the high profile cases, and, him being officer in DC. I was checking on him, and he said, for something echo what you just said, Greg, he said, I have to sometimes, when I know like somebody just go be detained, for example, they go be let go, like you need to chill out. Everything's gonna probably be okay. Like their friend may have been caught up in something, they say friend may have a warrant out or drug possession or speeding or whatever. Something goes down and you go release the people with him. Like he has to go that extra step to assure them, because then they start getting an aggressive posture with him. And he said, then he has the concern. He said, you make a call for backup. Say, I don't have a relationship a lot of times with these other officers that show up. I don't know them personally. They think because we police officers in the same district that we buddies. I'm not buddy with all of them. And he's like, they show up. I'm worried. He said, I'm worried about one of them escalate the situation. And then I'm sitting around get caught up with something with them because they acting a fool and they not helping. And he said, that, I didn't even think about it like that. He's like, yeah. So it's like, as much as he controls, and then certain officers that have a reputation and got complaints, he don't want to be nowhere near them if he don't have to when multiple officers are on the scene. As soon as I can get out of there, he's like, I'm out of there.
And
what would you say? Go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, I think that's the majority, though. I think most of us want to get through a traffic stop or interaction with somebody, as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And so when we are out and we are, we're making these stops and we're doing, you gotta understand. So from a patrol mindset, whereas Greg is, he's a detective now. His mindset's completely changed. He's more of a, I'm gonna do thorough research and do things like that. Whereas I'm on patrol, it's like, okay, I'm trying, how can I end this thing real quick to get on to the next thing. And so I think we do forget that humanization piece of just, putting you guys at ease when we turn those lights on, because it is a fear. And like I told Greg, I said, when I take my uniform off, I am, Mike Brown, George Floyd. I am. You know, when those lights come on behind me, and I got a badge and a gun, and I still get nervous. You know, so it is a different fear. Being a black man, you know, being pulled over by the police, and it's sad, it's frustrating, and so that's why we did this piece tonight to try to just maybe just start this dialogue and bring, you know, a lot of stuff together and get, you know, get you guys' opinions as to, you know, how we can bridge that gap. And, you know, the thing that I feel like we got tonight, and G and I had talked about it, and I've been saying it to him, is just the art of communication. It's been lost. It's been lost in police work. It's been lost in the community. And what you got right now is you got two communities butting heads that, you know, when nobody wants to be quiet and listen and hear the other side. So that's why we came on here tonight, to get that other side and just be quiet and just listen and take this all in, so we can take this back to our department. And, you know, Greg's going to post this, and hopefully other people catch on, and they can start this type of thing in their community. And I, you know, just based on conversations we had tonight, and, you know, all the other police videos that are going on, this won't be our last one. We'll do some more. So, G, you got something else you want to tighten up with?
I just want to, well, first off, thank you guys, you know, for helping me, you know, you guys have lived in different places, and that's helpful. And just to piggyback a little bit on that, I said to Joe, if I speak English and he speaks French, we're not going to communicate very well because we don't understand each other. And I think too often right now, you know, I'm going to jump to defend a police officer, not for some thin blue line, but because I see it through his eyes, and that's where I can really see it, is from his perspective. And I can't see the perspective from the other side because I never lived it, but I've lived that incident over and over and over again, so I can understand what he's thinking. So this was important to me, and I hope that it catches on, like Joe says, and I hope it was important for you guys too, to see my perspective, or me and Joe's perspective, of how the officers feel and what they're seeing, and we see your side, because now we can understand. And once we can understand that, now we can communicate more as opposed to being defensive. So I really definitely appreciate you guys for doing that.
So we'll go around. Jay, you got anything else? One last word you want to speak on?
Just to kind of piggyback on what you guys said, this was productive, man. Like this was needed. I hope that the conversation continues when something like this happens. You know, we see it, the George Floyd unfortunate situation. I feel like it kind of gets talked about for a week and then it goes away until it happens again. So I would hope that the dialogue continues, and we continue to grow. We're gonna have your differences and stuff like that, but if we're able to kind of communicate, meet somewhere in the middle, maybe not on everything, but on some things, it goes a long way. I got 3 black children that I'm raising in a predominantly white town, and you know, I've had to have conversations already with my 2 older ones about respect for the police officers, but also, you know, just being aware of your surroundings and understanding what's going on when you're in certain situations. And they're 8 and 9. It's not an easy conversation to have, but you know, the quicker I expose it to them and let them know and let them understand who they are, and allow them to be proud of who they are, and let them know that they can move freely and with confidence, I feel it goes a long way. But that also is built on the conversations that I'm having with you gentlemen tonight. I appreciate it. This was great, and I hope we can continue to keep doing these.
Adam, you want to go ahead and give me a word, Adam?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I just want to echo, you know, what Jay was just saying. Specifically, Joe and Greg, for you guys to be willing to listen. I think the willingness to listen has been begun to be viewed as almost like a weakness in this country. And I think being able to sit there and take that feedback and process it and ultimately put it into action, I think says a lot about how you guys are, and certainly says a lot about how you're willing to ultimately impact the community. So I certainly thank you guys for that. You know, and I think the other thing too is just, again, the communication that we've created tonight is a great jumping off point. I think as we kind of move forward here, we can kind of push this conversation further and further, right? And we had some really good stuff tonight, but we all know this can get even deeper and larger. And I think that's the important thing. So again, thank you guys all for allowing me to be involved in this. And I certainly look forward to more of these types of conversations.
Appreciate that, Adam. Quite give me a little something, buddy.
First I want to thank you and Greg for taking the initiative to facilitate something like this. And I hope it spreads and across the country, because this is something this small with a small number of people is no telling. So I don't want you guys to limit the possibilities of what you all are doing. So I mean, on a personal level, I appreciate it, but I think once this spreads, it has a lot of potential. So again, thank you guys for that. Thanks you for inviting me and considering me to do this. And thank you for the insight from an officer's perspective of, walking through a situation. I think that will also be helpful as well, because the communication both ways needs to take place. You guys have a tough job, and I think reasonable-minded people know that, respect that, appreciate that, because if something goes down, they calling the police. If I'm breaking their house, breaking into their cars, they calling the cops. And so you are a vital part of our society. So things have to get better, and hopefully this can kind of facilitate things moving in that direction.
Appreciate you. CJ, give me something.
Certainly appreciate you all. I definitely appreciate what you all bring to your families. I myself, as a 10-year-old who's just began her journey in activism, and one of the things I had, she wanted to make a sign when we went down to the White House.
Hey, CJ, I can't hear you. We can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
I hear you. Go ahead.
I was telling my daughter wanted to go down to the protests by the White House, and she wanted to know what to write on the sign. I was like, well, same thing I tell you all the time is respect is a currency that's widely accepted. You can go to the hood, you can go to a different country, wherever you go, you treat people with respect and you respect yourself. It's widely accepted. And if you begin everything with respect, you have to respect yourself first and respect everyone else, and people will treat you with respect. And that's what she wrote on her sign. So I have a lot of respect for all of you. I have a lot of respect for a lot of people, but respect is the way to go. It's like a passport.
Sure.
Appreciate you guys, man. Appreciate you guys coming out, doing this, volunteering to do this, just to give you guys a little history. CJ and Jamal did have hair. I was the first one to go bald. So I just had to put that out there. Hey, fellas, I appreciate you guys. I got to go to work in about 2 hours, so I'm gonna give me a quick nap. But thanks again, and we'll definitely do this again soon. Appreciate you.
All right, guys.
You guys.
Appreciate it.
All right, man.